If you were dropped into the Ice Age with nothing but simple stone tools, how long do you think you'd survive? Around you are giant mammoths, cave bears, and predators that could overpower almost any human. Yet our ancestors managed to live among them for thousands of years. What did they know that kept them alive? The short answer is that ancient humans didn't survive because they were stronger than the giant animals around them. They survived because they understood their environment, worked together, and slowly developed technologies that gave them an advantage no other species possessed. To understand how they lived among giant beasts, we first need to imagine the world they inhabited. Around 50,000 years ago, large parts of Europe, Asia, and North America looked very different from today. Massive ice sheets covered entire regions. Vast grasslands stretched for hundreds of miles across landscapes now buried beneath forests and cities. Scientists often call these environments the mammoth steppe, a cold, dry ecosystem capable of supporting enormous numbers of giant animals. And those animals truly were enormous. Woolly mammoths stood up to 13 feet tall at the shoulder and could weigh as much as 12 tons. Woolly rhinoceroses wandered the frozen plains with thick coats of fur and massive horns designed for sweeping away snow. Giant bison, elk, and deer grazed across the grasslands, while predators like cave lions, cave hyenas, and, in some regions, saber-toothed cats hunted for prey. To a modern observer, this world might seem terrifying. It's easy to imagine humans constantly hiding from creatures many times their size. But the story is far more complicated. Not every giant animal was a predator. In fact, most megafauna were herbivores. Mammoths, giant deer, and woolly rhinos spent most of their lives feeding on grasses, shrubs, and other vegetation. Like today's elephants, they generally ignored humans unless they felt threatened or were protecting their young. The greatest danger often came from predators or from desperate situations involving wounded or cornered animals. So why weren't humans driven to extinction? One reason is that humans rarely faced these animals alone. Unlike most predators, humans lived in highly cooperative groups. They shared food, watched for danger, cared for injured members, and communicated using increasingly sophisticated language. A single human was vulnerable, but a coordinated group could solve problems that no individual could face alone. This social behavior became one of humanity's greatest survival tools. Fire was another. Long before the Ice Age reached its coldest periods, humans had learned to control fire. It provided warmth, cooked food, and extended activity into the night. But it also helped keep many predators at a distance. While not every dangerous animal feared fire equally, its light, smoke, and unpredictable movement likely discouraged some encounters and made campsites safer after dark. Then there were tools. Early stone tools were simple, but over thousands of years they became increasingly refined. Spears allowed hunters to strike from a safer distance. Carefully shaped stone points made weapons more effective. Wooden shafts, sharpened with fire and fitted with stone tips, gave humans reach that their bodies alone lacked. These inventions didn't make people physically stronger. They made them smarter hunters. Even so, ancient humans probably didn't spend every day chasing mammoths across the plains. Large hunts were risky. A frightened mammoth could trample several people in seconds. Even a successful hunt required careful planning, cooperation, and a great deal of luck. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans hunted large animals when opportunities arose, but they also relied on many smaller food sources. Fish, rabbits, birds, edible plants, nuts, roots, and berries all contributed to survival. Flexibility was one of humanity's greatest advantages. Rather than depending on a single source of food, humans adapted to whatever their environment offered. That adaptability made them remarkably resilient. One fascinating clue comes from archaeological sites where mammoth bones are found alongside stone tools and human camps. At some locations in Eastern Europe, researchers have discovered circular structures built using hundreds of mammoth bones. These weren't trophies. They were homes. The bones likely formed sturdy frames that were covered with animal hides, creating shelters capable of withstanding cold winds on open plains where large trees were scarce. This tells us something remarkable. Humans didn't simply survive alongside giant animals. Sometimes they depended on them for food, clothing, fuel, and shelter. Nearly every part of a large animal could be useful. Meat provided nutrition. Fat could be burned or eaten. Bones became tools and building materials. Hides offered insulation against freezing temperatures. Even tusks could be carved into needles, artwork, or spear points. A single successful hunt may have supported an entire community for weeks. But humans were not always the hunters. Sometimes they were the hunted. Large predators occasionally attacked people, especially children or isolated individuals. Fossil evidence includes human remains bearing tooth marks from carnivores, reminding us that ancient landscapes were genuinely dangerous. Yet these discoveries are relatively uncommon. If humans had been easy prey, we would expect far more evidence of widespread predation. Instead, the archaeological record suggests a relationship built on caution, avoidance, and occasional conflict rather than constant attacks. Humans learned animal behavior. They recognized migration routes. They understood seasonal changes. They likely avoided caves occupied by bears and watched for signs of nearby predators. Knowledge became another survival tool. Generation after generation, experience accumulated. Children learned where dangerous animals gathered. Hunters remembered safe pathways. Families passed on strategies that reduced unnecessary risks. In many ways, culture became as important as biology. Another question has fascinated scientists for decades. Did humans cause the extinction of the giant beasts? For many years, one popular idea argued that humans hunted megafauna so successfully that they disappeared soon after people arrived in new regions. There is evidence supporting part of this idea. Some archaeological sites clearly show humans butchering mammoths, giant bison, and other large animals. In places such as North America, the arrival of humans roughly coincides with the disappearance of many giant species. But the story doesn't end there. Around the same time, Earth's climate was changing dramatically. The last ice age was ending. Temperatures rose. Grasslands shrank. Forests spread across landscapes that had once supported enormous grazing animals. Entire ecosystems were transformed. Many researchers now believe the extinction of megafauna resulted from several interacting causes rather than a single event. Climate change altered habitats. Human hunting added new pressure. Smaller populations became increasingly vulnerable. Together, these factors may have pushed many giant species beyond the point of recovery. This balanced interpretation best reflects the current archaeological evidence. It also reminds us that nature is rarely explained by a single cause. Modern science continues to uncover new details about this extraordinary relationship between humans and giant beasts. Researchers analyze fossil bones for cut marks left by stone tools. They examine ancient DNA preserved in sediments. They study pollen trapped beneath layers of soil to reconstruct prehistoric landscapes. Even microscopic wear-on stone spear points can reveal how ancient weapons were used. Each discovery adds another piece to an enormous puzzle. The picture that emerges is not one of fearless warriors battling monsters every day. Instead, it is a story of careful observation, cooperation, innovation, and adaptation. Humans survived because they learned faster than their environment changed. They adjusted their hunting strategies. They shared knowledge. They built shelters. They mastered fire. They created better tools. Most importantly, they relied on one another. No single human could challenge a mammoth. But an organized community equipped with knowledge, planning, and cooperation could survive in a world filled with giants. So, how did ancient humans live among giant beasts? The short answer is that they didn't conquer them through strength. They adapted. They respected the dangers around them. They learned when to hunt, when to avoid conflict, and how to use every available resource wisely. That combination of intelligence and cooperation became humanity's greatest survival strategy. Perhaps that's the most remarkable lesson hidden within the Ice Age. When we picture prehistoric life, it's easy to focus on the enormous animals that dominated the landscape. But the true story isn't about size. It's about adaptability. The giant beasts possessed incredible strength. Humans possess something different: the ability to learn, to share ideas, to solve problems together. Long before cities, long before agriculture, long before written history, our ancestors proved that survival doesn't always belong to the biggest creature. Sometimes, it belongs to the one that can adapt.